You are now listening to Project XX Cast podcast series.
Yo, what's going on, people? Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in again to another episode of Project X's Xcast podcast series. This episode is episode 4, and this episode is all things music. Before I introduce our very special guests, I'll introduce the young co-hosts first. So to my left,
David.
to the right,
Nathan.
and in the middle,
Nathan as well.
that's the young guest. Not guest, sorry. We'll cut it out afterwards. Moving on, introducing to you the guest, our special guest, pioneering the game, did a lot for the UK scene, internationally and at home, regarded as the godfather of UK hip-hop. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce to you Rodney Rhythm Killer P. Round of applause, people, make some noise.
Yes, brother. Nice one. Thanks for the invitation, definitely. All right, like I was saying, thanks for the invitation. To those who don't know me, my name is Rodney P. I've been an artist on the UK hip-hop scene since 1987, which is when I put out my first record, which was probably before most of you were even born. Probably before your mum met your dad, you know. I've been here a while. Over the years, I've worn a lot of different hats within the UK music industry and done some TV and some radio. I've managed to be lucky enough to diversify the hustle over the years and quickly learned that maybe music in and of itself wasn't going to be something that I could rely on to bring home a regular income, especially at the time we were making music, which was before Channel U, before the streaming services, before YouTube. This is when the hustle was very different. So, I've had a long and varied career. So I'm here to share whatever insights I have with you guys. So
I've got a quick question. How has the music scene changed from when you started out to where it is today?
It's in a lot of ways it's completely unrecognizable, and in other ways it's exactly the same. Music has always been about passion and young people trying to get their voices heard, and that's still the same. So I think from the music that I was making and the reason we were making it is because we wanted people to hear us. And I think when you look across music, across every generation, that's always part of it. It's like young people press the reset button and find their own way of expressing themselves. The hip hop scene has done that. The garage scene done that. The grime scene did that. The UK drill scene have done that. That's all different generations of young people trying to get their voices heard. That's universal and works across the board. But then at the same time, the scene has changed immeasurably. We used to rely on major record labels to give us access to radio stations and to help us find our audience, because it was hard to connect the music to the audience. But now with the birth of these new technologies, firstly it was things like Channel U and YouTube, and now streaming services, and young people being able to own the music they make and the rights to the music they make, and to be able to go out and find their own audiences. That has made a huge change. It's taken away some of the power from the big record companies, because a lot of these artists now have been able to say, well, I already know I have value, because my streaming numbers mean I was able to buy my house and my car and feed my kids. So if you're going to come and talk to me, you're going to have to come and talk to me with some respect and sensibly. So those things have changed immeasurably, because, like I say, we was often at the mercy of the major corporations, and that doesn't exist in the same way anymore.
Hi, my name is Kamai, and I got a question. As drill is very popular today, and it's like in the news, and there's been a lot of injunctions for different artists, would you say that drill is causing the violence, or would you say drill is just a reaction of how they're living?
I think it's a bit of both. I think we have to be honest and say that as positive as music can be, we look at people like Bob Marley and Public Enemy as being really positive groups that will bring really positive messages that spread throughout society. I think then if you're making really angry, negative music, that can have the same effect. But I don't think it's necessary to necessarily blame the artists who make that music if they're reacting to what they see happening within their lives day to day. So I think that it's six of one and half a dozen of the other. And I think a problem with a lot of the drill artists is you need to be able to tell the truth. Right? I think when music becomes popular, other people jump on bandwagons. So if you're reflecting how you live, then I think you have every right to do that. But if you're looking at an artist and saying, well, he's being really successful by talking about that stuff, I'm going to talk about it too, whether it reflects my reality or not, I think that is negative in and of itself. So when people are dealing with their reality, no one is allowed to tell them they're not allowed to say that. If that's their real life, you're going to have to just deal with it. That's their real life they're talking about. But we also have to say that negative connotations in the music can have a wider effect. So, like I said, six of one, half a dozen of the other. But we're never going to be allowed to tell a young person you're not allowed to tell that story if it's their story. We need to fix what's going on around them in their life before you can ask them to fix who they are. There's bigger problems to fix than what that MC said in his song.
How did your journey with music start?
How did my journey with music start? I joined as a fan. I was a fan of UK hip hop. I was a fan of hip hop, full stop. So when the hip hop scene started out, it probably, a lot of the young people now wouldn't recognize it in the same way. Hip hop came to England as this cultural movement. You know, we were rapping and breakdancing and body popping and writing graffiti. And we did, when you got into hip hop, you did all of that. You didn't just say, I want to be a rapper. You know, you was a breakdancing rapper who body popped and did graffiti. You did all of that. And I was a fan of that lifestyle. And at the time, like most UK rappers, all UK rappers used to rap with fake American accents. Very early on, I was lucky enough to go to New York and quickly discovered that rapping in a fake American accent was a really stupid idea. When the thing that affected people the most was when you would go to America and talk Cockney or talk in your London accent. Like, they would find it amazing. Black people with these funny accents. And you would get a really good response. So when the group of friends and the friend circle I was in, we were back in London and decided to make music that we wanted to be, you know, make this music and do this rapping thing. We decided to do it in a UK accent. So that made us stand out from the rest of the crowd. And really was the beginning of my career as an artist. But even before I had that career as an artist, I was just a fan of the music. And predating the hip hop scene, you know, people of my generation, we grew up listening to reggae music and dancehall music, and sound system culture was the thing. You know, and there was a lot of MCs within sound system culture and dancehall culture that were already doing, you know, music from the UK in their own voice. And obviously I was also a fan of that. So yeah, that was my journey into the music. I began like everyone else, I was purely a fan. I didn't have any dreams of being able to make any money or having a career as you know, within the music, but I loved it so much, I just wanted to be a part of it. And thankfully, I was able to transition into being able to have a career within it.
Before we started the recording, you were talking about like you think music's your therapy. Mm-hmm. I think everyone in this room agrees. Like, what was your main sort of Kickstarter?
Yeah, I think even if I didn't do music and write lyrics for these songs that hopefully eventually you'll be able to bring into the marketplace, I would be writing those songs and lyrics regardless. And I think that's the same for a lot of MCs or singers or songwriters, that, you know, it's a way often of getting whatever emotions you feel onto paper and out of your head. Definitely music is therapy for me. I think there's a lot of emotion in music, a lot of varied emotions. You can express your happiness, your sadness, your depression, your anger. All of these things can be expressed through music and through lyric writing. And oftentimes it's a much healthier way to deal with those emotions, because they have to come out. So how do you choose to get them out? Because they're going to come out anyway. They're going to come out regardless. And sometimes the best way for you to have to face how you think and how you feel is to be able to do that privately, write those lyrics or create that drum pattern, or play that piano, or whatever it is that you use, whatever, however you approach it. I think music is oftentimes therapy.
Yeah, definitely.
What is your suggestion to us new 2020 rappers?
What is my suggestion?
Yes.
To these 2020 rappers?
Yes.
Wait for 2021. Because 2020 is a monster. But I would say, for me, it's the same as it's ever been. Try to be honest. Try to be honest. Try to do you. I think that I come from a generation where the worst thing you could be, or the worst thing you could do, is sound like somebody else. That was a crime. That was the worst thing that could happen. I hate to be disrespectful to the current generation, and maybe it's just my old ears, but a lot of times now I find that a lot of artists copy other artists. If someone's been successful, then the next 10 artists are going to sound like that person. I would say it's always important to do you, because if you do you, no one else can copy that. You're bringing something brand new to the table, and that may be the thing that makes you stand out above the rest. Be prepared to hustle, be prepared to work hard, recognize the fact that as much as you love making music, it may not be the thing that helps you pay your bills, especially initially. Don't give up on your other dreams and throw everything into one basket. Be prepared to hustle. Recognize the fact that this thing may not pay you overnight, because most times it won't. And also look at the scene that you're coming into, and really try to educate yourself on how it works. Look into how does this streaming thing work? How do you make money streaming? How can I use the talents that I have to diversify the hustle? If I'm a writer already, that doesn't mean I don't have to just write raps. That means I can do anything I like. I'm a writer. Like if you look at someone like George the Poet, who's had amazing success, you see him all over TV. Well, his career started as a grime MC, but he was able to diversify his hustle, and now he's one of the most beloved and successful poets in the country, because he's always been a writer. So, be prepared to diversify your hustle and love what you do. That would be my best advice. If your only motive for getting into music is because you saw someone on Charlie Sloth's show who's got a really pretty chain on and looks like they're making money, it might be hard for you to transcend that, because you got to love it first, because this thing is hard work. It's not easy.
As a musician, how much rejection did you take before you were accepted, and how did you handle it?
Be prepared to be rejected, yeah? I would just say that first and foremost. Rejection is a key part of this learning curve that you're on. You have to have enough faith in yourself to know that rejection is not going to stop you from doing what you want to do. But be prepared to accept that some people are not going to understand what it is you do, or not see the vision of what it is you see.
As you were speaking about George the Poet, I was literally thinking, have you ever been big into poetry when you were younger? Or
Yeah.
was rap the sort of hip-hop? Was the sort
You know what? I started writing poetry before hip-hop even came to England. I was in primary school. When I won the Rotary Club of Battersea poetry competition. So I was still in primary school. So I must have been about 10 or 11. Yeah. And at the time, it was just something I liked doing. I liked just playing with words and using my imagination. At that time, hip-hop didn't even exist in the UK. The culture hadn't reached the UK yet. So yeah, I was always into poetry. I was always into playing with words. Yeah. And just, like I said earlier, this kind of dealing with emotions and how I felt, and just trying to be creative, And I think there's a lot of young people like that. And hip-hop and grime and drill gives them ways to use that talent that they already had. They already had that talent. It was innate in them, and it gave them a way to then use it and express it. And I think for a lot of young people, I think everyone's got talent. Everyone's got talent. There's no one on the planet who doesn't have talent. It's just for you to kind of look into yourself and see where it lies. I think a lot of young people see the MC as the guy who gets all the light shone on him. And that looks like a really cool place to be. But it's not the only job to have within this music industry. There's a lot of talented people within the music industry who you oftentimes have never heard of, but they're using their talent really well. You know, who are managers or creative directors or lighting people or sound engineers or producers, or there's a million job titles within the music industry, and you know, it's for young people or whoever to find out what it is that suits them the best. There's lots of people who may be really talented at writing lyrics but hate the idea of being in front of the camera. But then go and be a songwriter and find someone who loves being in front of the camera but may not necessarily have the best lyrics. There's a collaboration right there where everyone can eat. So it's about, you know, working out what your talent is and then putting your good foot forward. But, you know, yeah, man, we've all got talent. You can't be scared to, you know, dig into yourself and find out what that is.
Yeah, because I've heard pretty much all of your stuff. And like, I've just seen from early age your flow and your wordplay has just been on it.
See? Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Nice one.
Did you come across any racism or discrimination on your journey through the music industry?
I would have to say yes. I mean, I tried never to let that be a hindrance to what I wanted to do. I'm very, you know, stubborn-minded and you know, I board shoot things rather than crawl in. But I think, you know, when you're dealing with systemic racism, it's hard to avoid. So it's going to affect you along the way, whether it's blatantly obvious or subtle, but it's there. I think especially within black music culture, you often find that people love the music. They love, you know, the energy of this black culture, but they don't necessarily like black people. That's something that you're going to come across a lot. They're going to assume that the music represents everything that black people are about. So if they hear an angry song by an artist who has every right to be angry, they're going to assume that's a grudgeful black person who should get over it. You know, these things exist, but you can't afford to allow them to affect what you want to do with your life, because that then makes you the loser and them the winner. And I don't like losing, so keep it moving.
No one likes losing.
Yeah, who likes losing?
Yeah, no one.
Sit there, keep it moving. Don't never allow anyone else's opinion to affect your opinion of yourself. That would be stupid.
Yeah.
Wise words.
What kind of singer would you classify yourself as? Like, what kind of rapper?
You know what? When I started, I would have said I'm an MC. I do this hip-hop thing and I'm an MC. Over the years, I've been lucky enough to work with all kind of artists, doing all kind of music. I do hip-hop, I've done grime, I do drum and bass. I've worked with rock and roll bands, I've worked with ska bands, I've worked with orchestras. There ain't no limit on what you can think of. Like, where you can find a way to fit in, then you are that. So now I'm just an artist. Like, I don't limit myself, I'm an artist. I get in where I fit in, and I fit in most places. Now, there are no limitations on what you can do. You know, you use your voice in any space or in any way that you feel like suits you. And as time goes on, you find that you have a lot more to offer than you initially may have thought, because that comes with understanding, and the more you do, the more you know you can do, you know. But a lot of it is about how brave you are. Like, it takes a level of bravery to step out of your comfort zone sometimes, you know. Sometimes a lot of people do not want to risk falling over and embarrassing themselves, when actually sometimes you're going to fall over and embarrass yourself. Get up, dust yourself down, go again. Actually, it may be the best life lesson you ever learned. Or you may not embarrass yourself at all and you think, wow, I should have done that 10 years ago. I'm really good at that, you know? So, yeah, man, it's a level of bravery that you're going to need to really push yourself.
As you were saying, you use your own accent when, like, with your song and stuff. Would you say that you helped grime, like, as a genre?
Yeah, I think a big part of what we did was using our own accents. And I have to explain to you, like, I guess it's hard for a lot of young people now to understand. when hip hop first came to England, it would be hard for people to understand reggae music without Jamaican accents. With hip hop, when it first came to the UK, everyone, including me, I'm not trying to say like I wasn't part of that, everyone, including me, all rapped with fake American accents, which sounds ridiculous now, but that is the reality of how it was, you know? And at a point, we just rejected that. The group I was in, we rejected that. I said, we're not going to do that anymore. And it's kind of each one teach one, because we weren't universally accepted at first. A lot of the hip hop acts at the time said, "No, we're not doing that. We're keeping it American. You guys, like, they didn't want to hear what we had to say. It was a battle that we had to fight, and we fought it. And then a few more groups came in and started doing what we were doing, and it became the norm. But it took years for it to be the norm. And I think, you know, I think what we did definitely had an effect on what came after. So the fact that these grime kids took it for granted that they would use their English accents, we definitely had a part to say in that, definitely. But we were also affected by what was happening in dancehall music before us. So that has an effect on what we did. So the journey doesn't begin with what we did. The journey is continual. We're on a learning curve. We're all on a learning curve. In the same way, you know, people will say Wiley is the godfather of grime. And Wiley had an effect that everything that came after him on the grime scene. And now the young drill scene is being affected by what happened on the grime scene, because they taught new ways to hustle and how to use the streaming system and how to use YouTube and Channel U. That's from the grime generation. So it's a continual journey, but each one teach one. But I'm definitely taking some of the credit, yeah. For sure. And then like for me, you know, thankfully, you know, I've been able to diversify my hustle. You know, like I said earlier, there were a lot of job titles within this music and within this industry. So I started out as an MC, but because I had that and I had the personality I had, when One Extra first started, I was one of the first DJs on One Extra, because me and my DJ partner, DJ Skits, we actually made the first record ever played on One Extra, which was me, produced by Skits, featuring Gemma Fox and Beverly Knight. And yeah, that was the opening track they made to play for One Extra, for the launch of One Extra. And Roots Maneuver was on there as well, actually. So that then opened me up to now I'm a voice, I'm a BBC talent, which that then meant I was able to go and do documentaries within the BBC. And initially I was just making like 15-minute documentaries about music. But then from that, I was able to go and do TV work. So I've made music documentaries for BBC Two and for BBC Three, BBC Four. So this all comes from me being an artist. These opportunities I had were all because I was a UK rapper. You know, so I would say that it's important that young MCs and young artists recognize that you are not stuck in one spot. You can diversify your thing. It also led to me, like I used to work with Luke Himes, who's now the boss of YouTube. He's the boss of YouTube in the UK. And he used to do a show called Dubplate Drama. Dubplate Drama, right? So I was a part of that. And a lot of the people on that show are now huge talents. They're huge stars. Like, and have again diversified what they do into loads of other places. Big Nasty used to be on there. And the Children of Zeus, who are a soul group from Manchester, used to be on there. And whole heap of people. Now I've put myself on the spot, but whole heap of people. Shiesty used to be on there. Talisa used to be on there. Yeah, you know, you're big at the Stonebridge around them. Like, but the guy who did that is now the boss of YouTube in the UK. So, you know, don't limit yourself or your ambitions. You know, I do voiceover work as well, and I don't rap on those jobs. It's just me using my voice. If you listen to the radio, you may hear there's a new Gala Bingo advert. That is me. Like, I've done the voiceover that, and those jobs pay extremely well. So again, there's lots of ways to use the voice. You may discover your voice as an MC and as a rapper, but don't limit yourself to that. There's lots of outlets.
We will never be like them. We will never conform. We will never roll over and have our bellies tickled by the global giants, even if they throw shiny awards for us to chase. We will never chase the points, the money, the awards, the glory. We will never forget that it's talent, not tin, that is the lifeblood of this industry. We'll never say industry. It makes us sound like a car giant, and we aren't. We are the champions, the gatekeepers, the mothers of British talent. Talent that leads the world in film, art, music, swagger. We are homegrown and we grow our own. We give back. We stick together. Taking on all comers. We are the risk takers, the troublemakers. We don't give a shit where you live, where you're from or who your dad is. We are the outsiders. It's us against them. It's time to decide whose side you're
on. Are artists made or born?
My man goes deep with the question, isn't it? Are artists made or born? I would say both. I would say that some artists just come out of the womb singing or dancing or body popping or wherever it is. And some people have to find their talent. You know, they have to search for their talent. But I would say everyone is born with a talent. Everyone is born talented. It's just some people find that talent easier than others.
Growing up, who were your idols in music? And have you worked with them or met them?
I've had a lot of idols musically growing up, and a diverse set of idols as well. I mean, I grew up in the 70s. So there was a lot of reggae music, but there was also a lot of rock music, a lot of pop music. As much as I say I've never tried to limit what I do musically, I've never limited what kind of music I listen to either. But in terms of hip hop, like for me, a lot of people always say, who's the greatest MC? Who's the greatest MC? But my thing is who's the most important MC? And for me, the most important MC is Chuck D from a group called Public Enemy, who really had an effect on how I think and how, you know, how I thought about life going forward. But then there's lots of people like Busta Rhymes and LL Cool J and Jay-Z and, people like John Holt, who are a reggae singer, and lots. I feel like I'm kind of put on the spot. There are so many artists that I love musically, and thankfully, being in the position that I've been in, I've been able to meet a lot of them. Like over the years, I've met a lot of my idols, just through the fact that I've worked in radio and I've worked in TV, and I've done these documentaries. There's a documentary I did called the Hiphop World News. And I got to meet Chuck D. I went to his mum's house. I got to meet Rakim, who is, within the generation I come from, many people consider the greatest rapper. He's the equivalent of Nas or Jay-Z, or, I don't know who's the great rapper nowadays. But, these guys are the people I grew up idolizing, and I've been able to meet them. And the career I've been able to make myself is what allowed me to do that, definitely. So, yeah, you definitely get to meet some of your idols. I've actually recorded with a lot of the people I've looked up to, and recorded in a lot of the places. There's a famous studio in New York called the D&D Studio, where that's a lot of the classic hip hop albums were made, and I was able to go there and record a record with Smith & Wesson from the Boot Camp Click, and that was a moment for me. That was definitely a moment. I've got a record on my forthcoming album with a reggae singer named John Holt, who actually passed away now. He did a song called Police in Helicopters, about police in helicopters in Jamaica looking for Sensimilla field and weed fields. And I've got to make a tune with him, which made my mum infinitely happy, because that was someone she grew up listening to. Oh, wow. Because he was a sweet boy Rasta, like all the young Jamaican girls were in love with John Holt. So, I've got him on my new album. I think it's actually the last tune he ever recorded. So that was a blessing. And so much more. I mean, if I'd sat down and thought about that question before you asked me, I could have wrote you a list of people that I've met and turned into a kid in their presence. You know, I've met Jay-Z, I've met Nas, I've met all of these great artists, and I'm thankful.
Hip-hop is much more than just a style of music.
The complexity that's displayed by some lyricists in hip-hop is really at the forefront of American writing.
Hip-hop is probably more important than Shakespeare at this point.
The hip-hop I know gives a voice to the voiceless.
To understand hip-hop, you have to understand the civil rights movement.
Governments want to control people. Culture wants to be able to free them.
Street music, it comes from the ground up.
Hip-hop,
The entire culture
has changed the world.
Hip-Hop World News, Friday the 30th of September on BBC 4.
When's the album out?
When's my album out?
Yeah, the one you're talking
My album should have been out already, but you know, the whole COVID situation has kind of changed the ground. For someone like me, I really want to be able to take my album on tour and perform it in front of people. So until we know how the land lies, I've kind of pulled it back a bit, yeah. So hopefully 2021. Hopefully 2020 is just, look, we get over this thing, and 2021 is a little bit different.
You'll definitely see me at one of the concerts.
Well, all right. Check me,
I'll
brother.
be the first one to buy.
Check me, brother. I'll put you on the guest list.
Backstage
It'll be
pass,
all
all
right.
of that.
Yeah, I'll hook you up. Don't worry about that.
So you said that you've also like met loads of your idols growing up. What are they actually like in person compared to what they present themselves? Just very well they're presented. Because you said that you crumbled like a little kid.
Yeah, you know what? I want to keep it straight with you now. Sometimes you don't want to meet your idol. Yeah. Sometimes you don't want to meet them because they just
yeah, I get you.
You know, just like, God damn, and the music never sounds the same again, and what used to be your favorite song, you don't really like it so much no more. But then there's other times you meet your idols and it just makes you love them even more. Yeah. Just like, yeah, he was everything, or she was everything I wanted them to be and more, you know? So it swings and roundabouts. There's a balance to be struck. But I've met certain people that I've looked up to and just thought, you nice. You know, seriously.
It's true.
Yeah. It's real. You know, that's real. And then you meet other people and just think, I'm so glad I met you. Like, you was everything I hoped you would have been. So it swings and roundabouts, definitely. Definitely.
Well, what about female idols?
Yeah, it's the same. Exactly the same. Like, I remember meeting Alicia Keys with her mum, and she was just the nicest. Like, she was just so nice and gorgeous. Like, you know, you see them from a distance, and like, but gorgeous, just good energy. Like, you know what I mean? And there's, like, I remember meeting Beyonce as well, and like, same thing. This is years ago. This isn't recent. This is years ago. But she was just so local. You know what I want? She was just, yeah, she was just cool. Like, so yeah, man. There's lots of these artists are everything it says on the tin, and lots of them are just faking it from the outset.
Just before we wrap up, like, where can people find any of your stuff? I know it's on like YouTube and Spotify, obviously, but
yeah, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all the good places. On Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, I'd be Rodney P _UK. The new album, hopefully you'll hear about it. If we're doing our promotion properly, you should get to hear about it. It's on True Thoughts Records. And generally look for me, man. I'm about hustling, you know. Look for me out on tour. Rodney P, I often work with DJ Skits or with a band called the Dub Pistols. And I just try to keep it moving and try to have fun. Rodney P _UK. If you put that in your finder, you're sure to find something.
I did.
Found it, yeah?
Yeah, told ya.
Yo, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's another concluded episode of the X-Cast. That was the legendary Rodney P, and trust me, he's what he says on the tin. There's no fakeness there. Get me? So, Rodney, it was a pleasure having you down.
Salute,
I know
my brother,
all of these young people are going to take a lot away from this, because I've been following you, and I still even took stuff away from this episode. So thank you for coming down, man.
All good. Thanks for the invitation.
X-Cast, episode 4, signing off.
You are now listening to Project XX Cast podcast series.